Good morning, everyone. I'm going to present the project, which is a North Luangwa Conservation Program. This is a partnership between the Frankfurt Zoological Society and the Zambian government through the Department of National Parks. Frankfurt Zoological Society has been in Zambia now, I think this will be the 40th year. We're going to celebrate the 40th anniversary this year in September, and I think this presentation is going to speak to the wonderful work that has gone into the protection of the North Luangwa National Park. But before we get into the full presentation, I'm just going to play you a 5-minute video so that you have some background of what the North Luangwa Conservation Program is about.
Protecting the rhinos is something of great value because it provides employment to us, more especially the chiefdoms surrounding the national park.
What we are here for is to protect these animals. And rhinos, they are very important because they have created a lot of jobs and they have brought a lot of resources in our communities.
It brings a lot of income in our area. Not only Chifunda, but on national level also, it's a source of income.
This is 20 years now since we brought black rhinos back into the landscape, and they remain untouched, which is huge and got a really good growth rate, but there's a huge amount of work that's got into that. You consider this area had one of the highest black rhino populations in Africa in the 70s.
The black rhinos did roam the entire communities some time back.
In some past years, we had the chipembere in our park. There were plenty of them, they were all killed.
This park, North Luangwa National Park, has the only black rhino population in Zambia.
But with their reintroduction in the area, they brought in with them the funding at least, and also the support from our various donors for us now to expand in different streams of conservation.
There was also a focus to get the communities more involved in the protection of the landscape itself.
That's what landscape level conservation is. It's linking the park with the communities outside, and it's linking their socio-economic and household development to the park, to the wildlife, to the habitat.
No chipembele, no CRD. No chipondele, no employment. No chipembele, no waterways. No chipembele, no cocobas.
So linking livelihood and landscape is about ensuring that the communities are able to realize or sustain their livelihood from the landscape, because we believe a healthy landscape results in a stable livelihood.
These communities have embraced, they have owned, they have taken up the responsibility of conservation.
We have been operating in Zambia for the past 38 years, and that in itself has demonstrated to the community that we are not going anywhere else, but we are there to support them.
Conservation is not an island. We're talking about an ecosystem where everything is found. Therefore, we need coordinated effort from all sectors.
So the landscape integration unit is there to cement all of these together and ensure that we have that one vision to push towards the conservation effort.
The Luangwa is still threatened.
With what we've learned from protecting the North Luangwa landscape, we've got a blueprint that's working, and we can expand that now. And now is the right time. We're in the right place to address the threats of the Luangwa, the sources of the Luangwa are under threat. The Mafinga Mountains, the Makutu Mountains, the wider northern Luangwa landscape is critical to the survival of the Luangwa, from the source to the Zambezi, where there are hundreds of thousands of people relying upon this river, on the jobs that it creates. And those jobs are coming from wildlife, they're coming from conservation, through tourism, through employment as scouts, as well as the need for water, as well as the protein from the fisheries is absolutely vital. But if we don't act now to protect the source, protect the hydrology, to protect the tributaries, they will be gone in the next 5 to 10 years.
Sure, so thank you so much. That was just the introduction of North Luangwa, but before we get into the actual program itself, just some key facts about Zambia, so that we know exactly what we're talking about and where we're coming from. So Zambia has 3 tropical climates. That's the rainy season, a cool dry, and the hot season. I bring this up now just to give you some context of the communities that we're working with on the ground. It means that most of these parts, most of these communities are living in parts that are isolated and rural. And during that rainy season, that November to April season, these areas are mostly inaccessible and hard to get to. So you can just have some context about that. Then we have over 70 ethnic groups in Zambia, and the official language is English. And of course, with having 72 local languages being spoken in a country, you need to have that motto of one Zambia, one nation, which the government drives towards. Zambia has got 20 national parks and 36 game management areas. Game management areas are the buffer zones of the national parks. In Zambia, people are not allowed to live within the national parks, and so they live around those national parks, and we call those game management areas. So we have about 36 of them in Zambia, and the tenure, so just speaking to the land tenure, is we have 2 systems in Zambia. That's the state land and customary land. Under customary land, we've got traditional authorities and traditional chiefs who are in charge of that land. So the chiefs have a sort of strong power and decision-making when it comes to the natural resources that are within the game management areas that we work in. About the North Luangwa, we are working in an area that is 4,600 square kilometers. That's about 460 hectares. And in the game management areas, it's about 29,000 square kilometers, just over that. And that's equivalent to 2.9 million hectares. So now I think with the extension area, this now includes, we're working in 3 game management areas. North Luangwa itself, you can see it on the map there. That's North Luangwa, and down there we've got South Luangwa. Around here we've got 4 game management areas. We're currently working in 3 of those. That's Munyamazi, Mukungule, and Musalangu. And previously we were only working in the chiefdoms that are close to the national park itself, that are touching the North Luangwa National Park itself, but we've now extended all the way to the top there. Just to ensure that we take a catchment approach, to take the landscape approach and ensure that we are protecting the entire landscape rather than just focusing on the park itself. Just speaking to now the biodiversity of the North Luangwa National Park, why should we continue to preserve this area, to protect this area? So North Luangwa National Park, or the North Luangwa landscape itself, is one of the few areas that has kept its wildlife intact and has a pristine environment to it. So the focus is we have a lot of large herbivores that are protected, vulnerable species such as the vultures there, and we've got beautiful different vegetation in the area. You can see the Mupani woodlands there, as well as the riverine vegetation there. I think from the video you did see that one of the key species that was brought back to this landscape is the black rhino. These animals were hunted to extinction somewhere in the 80s, 90s. But through the Frankfurt Zoological Society, these animals were introduced in 2003. And these have been a keystone species for the North Luangwa landscape in itself, that it has a knock-on effect of bringing in other developments within the areas. So the focus initially was protection of the park, but with time and the lessons learned, we started to incorporate working with the local communities, and that has a knock-on effect of creating employment and others that we'll get to later. And I think you heard in the video that there's a mention of threats to the park itself. So this is unavoidable, and we've been tracking the land use changes over time around the North Luangwa. And what has been evident is the changes that are happening around the park itself. You could see that's the national park there, and these are the areas that we work in around here. So there's been land transformation, people coming in for agriculture, people want to see development happening, they want to sort of urbanize some of the areas, and this threat has been moving towards the park itself. So I think this helps us to understand why it is important to bring in and to work together and collaborate with the local communities to ensure that we are having a collective effort when it comes to the natural resource protection in these areas. And yeah, just speaking again to the vegetation that's there, we have some Miombo woodlands, wooded grasslands, Mopani, and many more. And you could see the red dots here are the built-up areas that are located there. Then some history of the North Luangwa milestones that have taken place. In 1986, the project was founded as a response to the poaching that was happening within the area. And I think through the years, in 2003, like I mentioned, the black rhinos were introduced into the area. This brought the first community engagement effort by introducing the conservation education program that helped to build knowledge on the black rhino introduction, as well as the conservation effort that Frankfurt Zoological Society was doing. In 2014, this effort was enhanced and built up, where we established our community-based natural resource management investment in the area. So this meant that we started first working with the community resources boards, which are a community-based organization, community institution that's mandated by the government to protect natural resources, as well as bring community development within their chiefdoms or within their GMAs. I think with this investment, this buy-in, we helped to train, we helped to set up these CRBs to train them in good governance, as well as continue to work on different initiatives and other alternatives. And I think from 2014 to about 2020, we had a huge, I think, continental poaching crisis that had happened. And I think with the continuous engagements with the communities, as well as other efforts of law enforcement, we recorded our first zero poached elephants within the park itself in 2018, which was a big achievement. And 2021, through the efforts and the lessons learned, we were able to implement the linking livelihoods and landscape strategy, which was developed. And further down the line, we were recognized as a legacy landscape, as well as put on the ICUN green list. This year, or last year rather, we developed a 5-year strategy that will help put some priorities on what we're supposed to be doing as an organization, so that we don't lose our soul, like Ignacio hinted to yesterday. We need to ensure that we are focused and we're prioritizing the work that needs to be done on the ground. And just to get a bit more into the management type of the North Luangwa Conservation Program. So when it was first established in 1986, we didn't have a core management agreement. What was there was simply an MOU that was done with the government for funding. So FZS brings the funding, then they work together with the department or with the government to protect the national park. In 1998, Zambia Wildlife Authority was born on the government side, and I think that MOU was revised to have, with FZS having a bigger role in terms of the implementation. And further down the line, 2008, we established another MOU when the Zambian government transitioned from having a Zambia Wildlife Authority to having a department within the government, which is the Department of National Parks. So this further warranted having another MOU with the government. And through all these, FZS has been having discussions with the government to have a stronger presence, a stronger agreement that would last. And in 2023, a co-management partnership agreement was signed between FZS and the Department of National Parks and Wildlife. So what does this mean for conservation? What does it mean for protection of the area? So now with this conservation management in place, it means there's a stronger agreement that's designed between the two parties, Department of National Parks and Wildlife and FZS. And this agreement also includes the game management areas that we work in. So it means that we have a stronger presence there, and because we've been there for a longer period of time, and this agreement is 20 years, it means that we can plan longer than just having a periodic plan of maybe 3 to 5 years. We've got time now to do a longer planning. And this agreement also gives equal oversight on one management. So you've got department and you've got the FZS. They formed what we're calling now the North Luangwa Management Company under one entity. So it means that people are following one process and are you're able to hire and fire depending on how people are performing on the ground. And now that brings us to linking livelihoods and landscape. So I think maybe you might have been asking yourself, what is linking livelihoods and landscape? You heard it in the video as well. I think coming back to now the 40 years that we've been in the area, I think this has helped us a lot build relationships, build trust, and kept going with that momentum, and people now value the efforts that the organization is making. And we also take a socio-ecological approach where we don't just think of it in terms of conserving wildlife or conserving natural resources, but rather we include the human element of conservation as well. So bringing those together and working in these 3 GMAs, we're just simply trying to say linking livelihoods and landscape means that if we do conservation correctly, we're going to create employment, we're going to create people's livelihoods, we're going to ensure that people are healthy within the area. And when that happens, people begin to trust us, and they begin to trust conservation as a way of life rather than looking at it as an outside intervention. And that's what linking livelihoods and landscape really entails. So when it comes to our approach and looking at how we design our programs, we look at 3 elements to have the best outcome in terms of conservation. So it's the governance work, the biodiversity, and the socioeconomic. So your governance is your people, the biodiversity is your environment and the natural resources, and the socioeconomic is the funding. When you mix these together, I think when you address them, then you have a proper, sustainable conservation program. On the governance element, we work with the community resources boards, like I mentioned earlier. These are community-based institutions. Then some of the challenges that we find there is these community resources boards usually sometimes are weak, and we have to be there to help support and train them and build up that capacity in terms of their working. Then, like I mentioned earlier, we've got a national park, then we've got game management areas. In the national park, there are no institutions, it's just the organization and managing the wildlife. In the game management area, where there are people are allowed to live in, there are a number of institutions there. So you've got the Department of Agriculture, you've got small and medium enterprises, you've got other players that are working in these areas. So there's a complex institutional arrangement in this that you need to manage in these areas. On the biodiversity element, these are the threats now to the natural resources. There's insufficient harnessing of wildlife and natural resource economy to build up or to get into those opportunities. There's land transformation that's happening, like I mentioned earlier. There are illegal farm blocks that are being set up. Just to give you an example of this is in one of the areas or the game management areas that we work in, the Department of National Parks has the mandate to work in the game management area, while the Department of Agriculture has the mandate to set up farm blocks. Before any farm block is being set up in the area, they have to get consent from the local communities, they have to get consent from the Department of National Parks, they have to get consent from different players and the traditional chiefs, like I mentioned earlier. Some of these processes were skipped and illegal farm blocks were set up. And without the North Luangwa Conservation Program intervention in saying what was done was wrong, I think those processes would have been missed and these farm blocks would have been set up, but it's an ongoing discussion and collaboration that needs to happen. Mining is a big issue that's happening now. It's coming up in the different areas that we work in, and we have to make sure that we're on top of things as we're working there. Then coming to the socio-economic aspects as well. If we do conservation right, we're going to have human-wildlife conflict, and that's one of the challenges that are there. Then the low employment levels, low literacy levels, food insecurity in these areas. These areas are cut off for 6 months of the year, and it gets difficult to have good nutrition and food in these areas. So we try and work and address those challenges. Then, yeah, I'll speak a bit to the governance. before we can begin to even implement any of the programs, we need to ensure that our house is in order. We're going in on a strong foundation, on a strong base, and what we do is we ensure that we have good administration, good operations happening. You have a fully functioning workshop, and you're building up on that infrastructure development. And not forgetting having good communication systems, because without communication, then it's hard to coordinate the efforts on the ground. With that building of the solid base, we've had infrastructure development linking to building scout houses, which is the rangers that are protecting our wildlife in these areas. We've built 235 scout houses, built road infrastructure within the park so that it's accessible all year round, and the scouts and the employees are able to get into the areas. A new shared project office has been built outside of the park, just to reduce that footprint that we have within the protected area. And of course, we have a new control room, a new hangar, a new canine units that are bringing together. And in the process of building all this infrastructure, we're creating employment, creating jobs for the local communities. So all these, most of these employees come from the communities that we actually work in. Like I mentioned, communications is a big thing, and we have to always keep up to date. And we use Earth Ranger for tracking and making sure that we're coordinating on the ground. This helps to make the right decisions and be right decisions on time and quickly and as efficient as it needs to be. Coming to the second element, which is the biodiversity, the environment. The two elements in this is the resource protection as well as the ecological monitoring. So on the resource protection, we've got a protection structure where we've got the rhino monitoring unit at the core of it, which is the national park, the base of it, where the rhinos are found. And in that rhino monitoring unit surrounding that is the fence line unit, which is protecting or making sure that the sanctuary where the rhinos are staying, that fence is being protected and is being managed. Then covering that again is you have your rhino and elephant protection unit, which is a specialized force trained to ensure that the park is guarded at all times. And through that, you've got your different sectors, different departments, and you've got your intelligence and investigations unit, which is important for getting that information that is needed. And surrounding that, we've got now our landscape integration unit, which helps to bring all this together, but as well links all of these structures back to the outside environment, back to the game management areas, and back to the other institutions that are working in these areas. When it comes to your biodiversity monitoring, it's about your data collection, your monitoring, ensure that you're establishing baselines, monitoring the trends, as well as adapting your management based on that evidence that's on the ground. Once you implement, you have to evaluate your impact to make sure that you're staying relevant to the conservation effort and to the area as well. So, as part of that resource monitoring, we've got our hunting monitoring. Hunting is a major source of revenue in the game management areas. That happens, and I think worldwide there's been an outcry on whether hunting is good or bad. But within Zambia, I think hunting has helped to bring development to some of these community areas. But I think it's about doing the hunting correctly when it comes to hunting correctly in this, and making sure that decisions are based on evidence rather than the income value of the process. So with that, we've implemented 2 monitoring systems, because we've got our safari hunting, which is the international market, and resident hunting, which is the national. So we've helped to train officers in how to collect this data, making sure that those hunts are monitored and they're done correctly and there's no corruption involved. And putting that data together helps us to ensure that this is done in a good way. Then your animal counts, of course, have to happen, and this is just illustrating that we have camera-based area surveys that happen. I think the last one that we did was in 2020, and we're still improving on these efforts as well. Then in 2022 and 2023, we did collar some elephants just to track movements understanding patterns and drivers of these elephant movements. And this has helped us to also understand the cases of human-wildlife conflict that are happening in the game management areas. You can see this is the park on top there, and this is one of the game management areas that we work in. So this collared elephant here has this home range between this local community here and getting into the park. And you can understand from that data, it helps to understand the time of the year that this elephant will be coming in, the times that it actually comes in during the day and during the night, and it helps us to make decisions on that. Coming to the socio-economic, which is your people element and your finances incorporated in that. We've got into a partnership with the local communities and helped them set up 3 community-owned tourism camps. I'll show you a video at the end of this presentation regarding this, but the idea is we've set up these tourism camps to help build up that local tourism within the country. These are affordable camps even for the local Zambians to go to, and not high-end tourism camps where the local market are not able to pay to stay there. So this, I think, taking some learnings from the COVID pandemic, where we need at least to have that local market getting into this. So we've got 4 tented camps within the North Luangwa Park itself, but 3 in the game management areas owned by the communities. And 100% of the revenues that are generated from these tourism camps go back to the local communities. FZS, NLCP, helps to manage the camps, but the revenues go to the communities. And now speaking about the landscape integration unit, there are 4 main priorities for this unit. That's human-wildlife coexistence, institutional governance, conservation education, and a livelihoods program. So the landscape integration unit is what brings together, if you remember from what I was just saying, what brings together all the protection, all the data collection and everything, and is that linked to the local communities and the other institutions that are in the game management areas. So, like I said earlier, I don't know if I can say fortunately or unfortunately, if you do conservation correctly, you're going to have human-wildlife conflict happening. So what we do as a program is try to coin human-wildlife coexistence, because it's inevitable that man and nature need to live together. So we help to bring in some of these interventions. You've got a number of cases where elephants are a problem. They get into the area, they eat, they damage someone's field, someone's food there that was going to be used in the following year. And we help to bring in interventions that help to alleviate some of these challenges that are coming in. So some of these prevention and mitigation measures that we are putting in place is having, in inclusion to what I just described in terms of collaring the data, trying to see, track the movements and see the patterns that are happening, is having solar fence initiatives using polywire. You can see there's an example here. This is the polywire. It's not the metallic strong wire that we put in, but we put in the polywire, and having this just to protect people's crops. So this is done in 2 ways. During the growing season, it protects people's fields, and during the dry season, it protects people's harvest as well as gardens, to ensure that there's food within these areas. Then we've also got a community-based gardening program where we've got what we call chili patrollers. These are community volunteers that come in. They're given basically a potato gun and a ping pong ball. That ping pong ball, we put in chili, we put in oil, and we put in petrol, and they use that and they go out in the field at night. If an animal comes into the field, for example, an elephant comes into the field, that is fired towards the animal and doesn't injure the animal, but rather that ping pong ball hits the animal, explodes, and just has that chilly, irritating effect, and they're able to chase away the animal from their fields. And we've also got a comprehensive data collection through local enumerators. We call them enumerators. They help to collect data on incidents, and we put together the data that you saw before in the previous slide, just to record those incidents and to just track and make decisions. And we've also got an education and sensitization program and other means that we do that. Another key element is strengthening the governance and the partnership arrangements within these areas. So, like I mentioned, the game management area is messy. There are a lot of players involved, so you need to ensure that you're communicating, you're discussing, and you're making those connections with these different players. And we do this at different levels, from the chiefdom level to the international level. So in the chiefdom level, there's a number of institutions that we work with, from the CRBs, the community forest management groups, and other cooperatives within these areas. At district level, we work with the district councils, the provincial authorities, to ensure that we're aligning with the work that we do there. Then we've also, I think this is going to be the 5th year, we've set up what we're calling the North Luangwa Landscape Forum, where we bring all the actors together once a year, just to discuss the work that we've been doing within the landscape, discuss their work as well, and see where we intersect and we align and bring that together. So, and a big part of governance as well is land use planning. We plan together with the communities when it comes to developing general management plans in the area, as well as village land use plans. So we start in 3 levels. So you first develop your village land use plan, then you work with the government to develop a general management plan for the area. And I think a story on this one is when we developed this general management plan with the communities on the ground, these 3 yellow zones that you see there were not there. These are tourism zones. There were only 2 hunting blocks in this area and no tourism. So we sat down with the communities, planned together, and through that planning, we had these 3 zones, and now we've got 9 applicants who want to come into the area and bring in tourism and create more, another revenue stream for these communities. Then we've got an award-winning conservation program called Lolesha Luangwa, which started in 2003 when the black rhinos were introduced. And with this, we've got conservation education clubs and mini-change groups that happen within the area. So conservation education clubs are targeted at school-going children. There are clubs within a school that they can join and learn about conservation and learn about the natural environment. Mini-change groups are targeted to adults within the communities, where we give them knowledge, build up their knowledge, and at the end of the day, they are supposed to come up with a change campaign within their communities. So this can be anything to do with natural resource protection or conservation, or it could be something, a social matter within their communities, like any early pregnancies within their communities, or over alcohol abuse within these. Coming to the livelihood aspect, we've had a number of interventions, setting up community conservation banks. So community conservation banks are microfinance groups that we've helped to set up, where community members, a group of 30 members, meet on a weekly basis to grow a pot of money. And from that pot of money, they're able to start conservation-friendly businesses within their areas. And this helps with the livelihood element. And went a step further now is we've helped these groups register as cooperatives so that they can have access to other funding from the government to start up their own businesses. We've also done a number of vocational training and grant applications we've also done a number of vocational training for these groups, just to help them start up their own enterprises so they can have a means to support their families within these areas. So some have been trained as mechanics, some have been trained in tailoring, and I think last year we were able to give sort of grants that stay within the groups to help them grow their pot faster, to help them grow their pot faster to start up these businesses. So this is just an example of the trainings that we've done for these groups and these communities. Of course, this is the tourism camps that I talked about earlier, but we've gone into the beekeeping interventions. We've done climate smart agriculture training with them. We've also helped to train them how to make leather from the skins that remain during the hunting and other smaller livestock that they have. Through that, they can, by building these skills, building these skills and give them financial literacy training, we hope it can help to start enterprises on their own. So coming to the successes of the program itself, there's been 0 rhinos poached since their introduction, which is a massive achievement. Like I mentioned, 0 elephants poached now since 2024. It has the highest density of growing elephant population in Zambia, and where we are now is that the major threats are coming from outside the GMAs and not within the areas that we work in. So most of the threats, people coming in to get resources from the area, the poaching, mostly are people coming externally who are not involved in this program. The canine unit is also one of the good successes, with having the highest rate of arrests in Africa, with over 1,000. And I think just making that comparison of a foot patrol versus a canine handler, you spend less in terms of the comparison of the monies, and we've got 80% of handlers in that unit. The socio-economic is we created a lot of conservation jobs. NLCP has been considered the biggest employer in the province that we work in. And last year we had our first ever perception survey, which is important, of how people perceive conservation, how people perceive North Luangwa itself. And what came out was really positive, in that they see conservation, they see the program as having value for their lives, but they also recognize that there's a challenge of human-wildlife conflict. So in as much as there's human-wildlife conflict, they appreciate that these efforts and this program is happening in their areas. And this is just speaking to, again, the vocational skills that we've helped to provide within the area. So now the key learnings. What are we learning from this? Last year we did an integrity management within our own organization, because we have to have a strong base and a strong foundation. We looked within and see where the risk is when it comes to ourselves. There's always a risk of someone coming from externally and trying to corrupt an officer to maybe gain something, or try to corrupt someone within the organization or even outside. So we did a measure, and what we found was there's high integrity within the organization, but we need to put in measures to ensure that we're tackling that. And with that, we came up with these attributes and building of culture within the organization, and we call it IDEA, which is we need to have integrity, discipline, emotional awareness, as well as accountability for this. Building that culture, building that dynamic within the team will help implement any strategy. If we don't have good culture, then it doesn't matter what sort of strategy you have to implement, it won't be successful. I think another key learning is we need to implement, we need action. Okay, so it's you can plan and plan and plan, but if you're not acting, you're not making sure that you're responding to the challenges, then your planning goes out the window. So we need to implement. We've extended rather into the northern section of the park, covering the full landscape there, and we're also working towards having good partnerships here to have that connectivity of the area. And a conservation partnership association has been formed just to bring together and have a stronger voice when it comes to influencing policy within the country. Then another key learning is we need to optimize investments in conservation. We can't just be dependent on these revenue streams of tourism and hunting, but rather look at different funding sources as well, such as maybe bonds that can come in, water bonds, carbon credits, and others, and try to see how we can finance this conservation effort without being very donor dependent, so that we don't lose our soil in the process. Also, protection of an area has a number of elements to it. It's not just about law enforcement, but rather taking a holistic approach when it comes to implementation of the program. So you have to have your park management, you have to have your landscape integration, your tourism, your law enforcement, and all that I've put in. So yeah, in summary, just to conclude before the final video, this is just an example of what happened. One of the rhinos broke out of the fence, traveled 220 kilometers away from the park, and ran into south of the park. One extraordinary thing that happened is that it was not shot down, it was not poached, but rather community members picked up the phone and called NLCP. There's a rhino that we've seen here, please come and get the rhino, rather than attacking it. And it took a collaborative effort from the Zambian Air Force, partners within the neighboring park, other NGOs coming together and getting this rhino back. That's the longest sling ride 220 kilometers from where it was back to North Luangwa. So it was that effort and everybody coming together and having that program together. So I think with that, I'll end with this video to welcome you all to North Luangwa. And I think that'll be it. Sure.
Lying in the heart of Zambia's Muchinga province is a wilderness so vast and so remote and for so long unexplored. Until now. As a celebration of the timelessness of the Luangwa River and the ancient Mopane forests that support her banks, to the tributaries that run down the rugged hills of the Muchinga escarpment. This is an opportunity to open yourself to the spirit of exploration and adventure. To experience solitude and serenity. And to immerse yourself and connect with the world that surrounds you. This is a journey that is raw, wild, and beautiful. And along the way, remember to make the memories last. North Luangwa welcomes you to the Amatololo experience.
Thank you so much, everyone.